Hello and welcome in today's classroom. For today, we have chosen loss of biodiversity as the theme for today. The great variety of life on earth has provided for man's needs over thousands of years. This diversity of living creatures forms a support system that has been used by each civilization for its growth and development. Those that use this bounty of nature carefully and sustainably survived. Biodiversity refers to the number and variety of species of ecosystems and of the genetic variation contained within species. Roughly 1.4 million species are known to science, but because of many species are undescribed, an estimated 5 to 50 million species likely exist at present. Biodiversity is threatened by the sum of all human activities. It's useful to group threats into categories of habitat destruction, poaching, human-wildlife conflicts, invasion of non-native species, pollution, and climate change. Habitat loss presents the single great threat to the world biodiversity, and the magnitude of this threat can be approximated from species, area, curves, and rates of habitat loss. The spread of non-native species threatens many local species with extinction and pushes the world's biota towards a more homogeneous and widely distributed subset of survivors. Climate change threatens to force species and ecosystems to migrate towards higher latitudes with no guarantee of suitable habitat or access routes. Threats to biodiversity. There is one word common, that is HIPPO, standing for habitat destruction, invasive species, pollution, human overpopulation, and over-harvesting. Extinction or elimination of species is a natural process of evolution. In the geological period, the Earth has experienced mass extinction. During evolution, species have died out and have been replaced by others. However, the rate of loss of species in geological past has been a slow process, keeping in view the vast span of time going back to 444 million years. The process of extinction has become particularly fast in the recent years of human civilization. Current documented rates of extinction are estimated to be roughly 100 times higher than typical rates in the fossil records. In this century, the human impact has been so severe that thousands of species and varieties are becoming extinct annually. One of the estimates by the noted ecologist E.O. Wilson puts the figure of extinction at 10,000 species per year or 27 species per day. This startling figure raises an alarm regarding the serious threat to biodiversity. Over the last 150 years, the rate of extinction has escalated more dramatically. If the present trend continues, we would lose 1/3 to 2/3 of our current biodiversity by the middle of 21st century. Scientists have estimated that human activities are likely to eliminate approximately 10 million species by the year 2050. Anthropogenic threats leading to extinction of species and consequent loss of biodiversity include habitat loss and fragmentation, poaching of wildlife, human-wildlife conflict, introduction of non-native species, overexploitation, pollution and disturbance, intensive agriculture and forestry, and climate change. Habitat loss, degradation, and fragmentation. Habitat loss and degradation are major causes of species extinction. Habitat loss and degradation is the most pervasive threat to birds, mammals, and plants, affecting 86% of all threatened birds, 86% of threatened mammals assessed, and 88% of the threatened amphibians. Habitat loss could be attributed to conversion, habitat degradation, and fragmentation. Billions of hectares of forest and grassland have been cleared over the past 10,000 years for conversion into agricultural lands, pastures, settlement areas, or developmental projects. These natural forests or grasslands were the natural homes of thousands of species which perished due to the loss of their natural habitat. There has been a rapid disappearance of tropical forests in our country also, at a rate of about 0.6% per year. With the current rate of loss of forest habitat, it is estimated that 20 to 25% of the global flora would be lost within a few years. Wetland ecosystems are shattered by draining, filling, and pollution, thereby leading to huge loss of biodiversity. Habitat fragmentation is a leading cause of biodiversity loss. The alteration of land use pattern has resulted in fragmentation of habitats, ecosystems, and landscapes in most parts of the world. Forest fragmentation replaces large areas of native forest by other ecosystems, leaving isolated forest patches with deleterious consequences for most of the native forest biota. Certain wildlife species like bears and large cats that require large territories of the forest to subsist are badly affected by habitat fragmentation, as they breed only in interior of forests. According to IUCN UNEP report, more than 50% of wildlife habitat has been destroyed in 49 out of 61 Old World tropical countries. Poaching of wildlife. Poaching has been defined as the illegal trade of wildlife products by killing prohibited endangered animals. It includes illegal harvest, possession, sale, transport, and use of wildlife or their parts. Poaching is another threat that has emerged in recent decades as one of the primary reasons for decline in number of species. Wildlife is sold and traded in many countries for live specimens, folk medicines, furs, skin, and other products such as ivory, horns, etc., amounting to millions of dollars. At present, tiger is being killed on account of the sale of its bones and other parts to meet the unprecedented demand for traditional Chinese medicines. Poaching is considered as one of the most serious threats to the survival of plant and animal populations. Man-wildlife conflicts. According to the World Conservation Union, World Park Congress 2003, it occurs when wildlife's requirements overlap with those of human populations, creating costs to residents and wild animals. The conflict between man and wildlife started with the evolution of man, but intensity increased due to the activities of modern man. Due to the lack of stable food and disruption of movement, wild animals came out of forest area and attacked the agricultural field and humans, and in turn got killed by the humans. Human-wildlife conflict is becoming a serious threat not only to the survival of many endangered species in the world, in particular to large and rare mammals such as Sumatra tiger and the Asian lion, snow leopard, and the red colobus monkey. In Sambalpur, Orissa, 195 humans were killed by elephants in a span of 5 years. In retaliation, the villagers killed 98 elephants and badly injured 30 others. Exotic species. Organisms introduced into habitats where they are not native are termed as exotics. They can be thought of as biological pollutants and are considered to be among the most damaging agents of habitat alteration and degradation in the world. Alien invasive species are a significant threat to globally threatened species, affecting 326 bird species, nearly 30% of all, 212 amphibian species, which amounts to 11% of all, 760 mammals, which calculates to be 8% of all, and 361 plant species, which amounts to 15% of all. Exotic species are having large impacts, especially in island ecosystems, which harbor much of the world's threatened biodiversity. Alien aquatic weeds like water hyacinth and water lettuce are increasingly choking waterways and degrading freshwater ecosystems. Invasive species are considered second only to habitat destruction as a major cause of extinction of species. And its examples are the major plant forest invasive species that include Lantana camara eupatorium, Glandolosum, Parthenium species, Mimosa species, etc., etc. Pollution and disturbance. Rising levels of pollution is yet another reason for loss of biodiversity. Pollution may reduce and eliminate populations of sensitive species. Pollutants like heavy metals, pesticides, and crude oil are especially dangerous because these accumulate in the food chain and elicit toxic effects in several species. For example, pesticides linked decline of fish-eating birds and falcons, lead poisoning in another major cause of mortality of many species such as ducks, swans, cranes, as they ingest the spent shotgun pellets that fall into lakes and marshes. In South Asia, vultures of the genus Gypass have declined by more than 95% in recent years owing to the toxic effects of the anti-inflammatory drug diclofenac, which causes renal failure and vascular gout in the birds feeding on the carcasses of animals treated with the drug. Eutrophication of water bodies drastically reduces species diversity. Intensive agriculture. Since the Butland Commission report, the globalization of agriculture and inappropriate agriculture policies has emerged as leading drivers influencing the loss of species and ecosystem services. Of some 248,000 known species of higher plants, about 10,000 to 15,000 are edible and about 7,000 of them are used in agriculture. However, increased globalization threatens to diminish the varieties that are traditionally used in most agricultural systems. For example, only 14 animal species currently account for 90% of all livestock production, and only 30 crops dominate global agriculture, providing an estimated 90% of the calories consumed by the world's population. Despite its crucial importance in supporting societies, agriculture remains the largest driver of genetic erosion, species loss, and conversion of natural habitats around the world. More than 300,000 square kilometers of land have been converted to agricultural use in the tropics alone. This has led to inefficient use of resources, often resulting in degradation of land and ecosystem services. Now, let's come to the climate change. The changing global climate threatens species and ecosystems. The distribution of species, biogeography, is largely determined by climate. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in its summary report released in February 2007, has estimated huge loss of biodiversity for biodiversity-rich megadiverse countries such as India because of higher greenhouse gas emissions. By 2000, 27% of the world's coral reefs had been degraded in parts by increased water temperatures. Climate change may simply shift these distributions, but for a number of reasons, plants and animals may not be able to adjust. Now we'll focus on biodiversity loss in India. India has lost 90% of area under 4 biodiversity hotspots, 25 species extinct, finds study. In India, 1,212 animal species are monitored by the International Union for Conservation of Nature in Red List. A key issue that has put fires at risk is the forest fires, which have been quite high since the recent years. Over 90% of the area under the biodiversity hotspots in India have been lost. India has 4 biodiversity hotspots and 90% of this area has been lost, according to the Center for Science and Environment's new report entitled State of India's Environment in Figures 2021. As per the data compiled in the report, the Indo-Burma hotspot is the worst affected and has lost 95% of its vegetation area, going from 23.73 lakh square kilometers to 1.18 lakh square kilometers. Another worrying aspect is that in these 4 hotspots, 25 species have also become extinct. In India, 1,212 animal species are monitored by the International Union for Conservation of Nature in its Red List, and over 12% of these species, 148, are endangered. Among the endangered species are 69 mammals, 23 reptiles, as well as 56 amphibians. A key issue that has put fires at risk is the forest fires, which have been quite high since the beginning of the year, the report has said. Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand and Madhya Pradesh are among the 16 states that have witnessed an increase in this aspect. To put this in perspective, 2016 was the hottest year on record and India's annual temperature that year rose 0.71 degrees Celsius above normal. The year, the country witnessed 5.41 lakh forest fires, the maximum recorded in the decade. It has become obvious that the preservation of biological resources is essential for the well-being and the long-term survival of mankind. The biodiversity of living organisms, which is present in the wilderness as well as in our crops and livestock, plays a major role in human development. The preservation of biodiversity is therefore integral to any strategy that aims at improving the quality of human life. We do not see all the varied functions that biodiversity plays in our lives because they are not obvious. We rarely see how they are controlling our environment unless we study nature. Thus, we tend to take short-term actions that can have serious impacts on biodiversity, leading to an extinction of species by disturbing their habitats. Man has no right to do so. We only share this planet with millions of other species that also have a right to survive on Earth. It's morally wrong to allow man's actions to lead to the extinction of species. Thus, it is concluded that loss of species occurs due to the destruction of natural ecosystems, either for conversion to agriculture or industry, or by over-extraction of their resources, or through pollution of air, water and soil. With this, we come to the conclusion and hope the content is well explained to you. Further study is always required. You will follow the tradition, and we shall be meeting in another classroom with another topic. Till then, goodbye and good luck.